The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Some had scales, some had feathers, and some had bodies made of things that humans could not even name. The hall was built on a space station that floated between stars, and its walls were made of crystal that showed the endless darkness of space outside. Park Jin stood at the human platform. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple black suit, nothing fancy, nothing meant to impress. He was the voice of Earth in this place. Today his voice would need to be steady. The Korath delegation entered the hall. Everyone fell silent. High Lord Voss walked at the front. He was massive, standing 3 meters tall, with dark blue skin and 4 arms. His eyes were like black stones, and when he smiled, his teeth were sharp like knives. Behind him walked General Torak and 50 Korath soldiers in battle armor. They did not need to bring soldiers to a peace council. They brought them anyway. It was a message. Through the crystal walls, everyone could see the Korath fleet. 200 warships hung in the darkness like sleeping monsters. Another message. Voss took his place at the center platform, the place of honor. He looked around the room slowly, letting everyone see him, letting everyone feel small. I will speak plainly, Voss said. His voice was deep like thunder. The Korath Empire requires 3 worlds currently occupied by humans. The colonies you call Novo Sol, New Busan, and Port Incheon. You will give them to us. Park Jin did not move. Those colonies are home to 40 million people. They are not things to be given, Voss laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Then move your people. You have 30 days. And if we refuse, Voss spread all 4 of his arms wide. Then we will take them. And we will not be gentle. Murmurs spread through the council hall. Elder Mira, the ancient leader of the council, watched with her 6 eyes, but said nothing. She had seen empires rise and fall for 1,000 years. She had learned to wait. Park Jin kept his voice calm. The Galactic Council has laws against unprovoked conquest. What you propose is laws. Voss interrupted. He stepped down from his platform and walked toward the human section. The Korath soldiers followed. Laws are for species that can enforce them. Tell me, human, what will you do if we take your worlds? Will you fight? Park Jin said nothing. Voss smiled wider. I thought not. He turned to address the entire council, raising his voice so everyone could hear. Let me tell you about humans. I have studied them. My scholars have studied them. We know what they are. He waved one of his hands, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the hall. Images began to play. Human images. Protests against wars. People holding signs that said no more fighting. Crying mothers holding photographs of dead soldiers. Memorials covered in flowers. Politicians giving speeches about peace. Look at him, Voss said. They make ceremonies for their dead. They write sad poems about battle. They hold protests against their own armies. Their philosophers write books about why fighting is wrong. He laughed again, and some of the other species laughed with him. They are afraid. They are so afraid of war that they have built their entire culture around avoiding it. More images played. Human children learning about the horrors of ancient wars. Museums dedicated to peace. Treaties signed with great ceremony. Leaders shaking hands and promising never to fight again. This is not a warrior species, Voss declared. This is a species of prey. They feel too much. They cry too easily. They hesitate when they should strike. They talk when they should act. He turned back to Park Jin. You will give us your colonies because you are too weak to stop us. Everyone in this room knows it. Park Jin stood very still. His face showed nothing. General Torak stepped forward. We have analyzed your military. Your ships are few. Your soldiers are soft. You train them to think of enemies as people, to hesitate before killing. This is weakness. In 30 days, we will show you what real warriors can do. The council hall was silent. No one spoke in defense of humanity. Some species looked away, embarrassed for the humans. Others nodded in agreement with Voss. Humanity was new to the galaxy. Only 50 years since first contact. They had not proven themselves. They had only shown that they valued peace. And in this galaxy, peace was often seen as weakness. Park Jin finally spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. "Is that your final word, High Lord?" Voss leaned down, bringing his face close to the human. "It is. You have 30 days. Surrender your colonies, or watch them burn. I do not care which." Park Jin nodded slowly. "Then I will take your message to Earth." He turned and walked out of the council hall. He did not run. He did not argue. He simply left. Voss watched him go and laughed once more. You see, they do not even protest. They simply accept. This is what fear looks like. The council session ended. Species returned to their ships, their stations, their homeworlds. Everyone talked about the same thing. The Korath would take the human colonies, and humanity would do nothing. It was obvious. It was inevitable. Elder Mira remained in the empty hall long after everyone else had left. She sat in her ancient chair and looked at the stars through the crystal walls. She had lived for 1,200 years. She had seen many species rise and many species fall. She had seen proud warriors and humble farmers. She had seen empires that seemed unbeatable crumble to dust. And she had learned one thing in all those years. The species that talked most about war often understood at least. She thought about the human images Voss had shown. The protests. The memorials. The tears. The poems. Voss saw fear. Voss saw weakness. Elder Mira saw something different. She saw a species that had sent millions of its own children to die in wars. She saw a species that had built weapons capable of destroying their entire world. She saw a species that had looked into the face of total destruction and somehow survived. She saw a species that hated war because they knew it better than anyone. "You have made a mistake, High Lord," she whispered to the empty hall. "And I fear the galaxy will pay the price for it."
Far away,
Park Jin's shuttle raced toward Earth. In his pocket was a small photograph of his grandchildren playing in a garden on Novo Sol. His face was calm. His heart was not. The countdown had begun. The galaxy waited for humanity to respond. They waited for messages of surrender. They waited for pleas for help. They waited for desperate negotiations. They received nothing. Earth went silent. No communications left the solar system. No diplomats requested meetings. No leaders made speeches. For 10 days, humanity said nothing at all. The Korath took this as confirmation of their beliefs. General Torak told his officers that the humans were probably fighting among themselves, arguing about how to surrender with the least shame. High Lord Voss did not even think about the humans anymore. In his mind, the war was already won. They were wrong. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, in a bunker built centuries ago for a war that never came, Admiral Kung Tae stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different part of human space. Shipyards working through the night. Soldiers boarding transport ships. Weapons being loaded. Supplies being moved. Kung Tae was 60 years old, with a face like stone and eyes that had seen too much death. He had commanded ships in border conflicts. He had lost friends. He had written letters to families of dead soldiers. He understood war in a way that High Lord Voss never would. "Status report," he said. A young officer stepped forward. "Sir, the first fleet is assembled at Mars. The second fleet will be ready in 3 days. The third fleet is gathering at the edge of the system, the special weapons." Another officer, Cho Wu, looked up from his console. Cho Wu was small and thin, with glasses and messy hair. He looked like a teacher, not a warrior. But his mind had created weapons that would change this war. "Admiral, the EMP torpedoes are loaded on all capital ships. The kinetic accelerators are installed. The shield breakers are—" He paused and smiled slightly. "Let us say they are a surprise." Kung Tae nodded. "Good. We have kept these weapons hidden for 50 years. Now the galaxy will see why." When humanity first met alien life, they quickly learned that the galaxy was a dangerous place. Strong species took from weak species. It had always been this way. So humanity smiled and made friends and signed treaties. They seemed peaceful. They seemed harmless. But behind that smile, they prepared. They built weapons in secret. They trained soldiers in hidden bases. They developed technology they never showed to anyone. Because humans had learned from their own history, peace must be protected with strength, now that strength would be revealed. On the battleship Iron Dawn, Captain Yoon Hannah addressed her crew. She stood on the bridge, surrounded by officers and soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come. "I know what they say about us," Yoon Hannah said. Her voice was steady and strong. "They say we are afraid. They say we are weak because we cry for our dead. They say we are soft because we hate war." She looked at the faces around her. Young faces, old faces, scared faces, and brave faces. Let me tell you something. Our ancestors fought wars for thousands of years. They fought with swords. They fought with guns. They fought with bombs that could destroy cities. They fought until they finally said no more. Not because they were afraid, because they understood. They understood that every war takes something from us that we can never get back. She pulled up a holographic display. It showed 3 planets: Novo Sol, New Busan, Port Incheon. 40 million of our people live on these worlds. Mothers, fathers, children, old people who just want to spend their last years in peace. Young people with dreams they have not yet chased. Her voice grew harder. The Korath want to take them. They want to make slaves of our families. They think we will let them. She paused. They think wrong. The crew cheered. It was not a loud cheer, not wild or uncontrolled. It was a quiet, serious sound. The sound of people who knew what was coming and were ready to face it in another part of human space. Lee Mina climbed into her fighter ship. She was 32 years old, with short black hair and a scar across her chin from a training accident. Her call sign was Ghost because she could disappear from enemy. Sensors like she was never there. She looked at a photograph taped to her control panel. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, with big eyes and a bigger smile. Her daughter. Her daughter, who lived on Novo Sol. A mechanic walked up to her ship. "Ready to fly, Ghost?" "Always," she said. But her eyes stayed on the photograph. "We will protect them," the mechanic said softly. "All of them," Limina nodded. "Yes, we will." Ambassador Lith watched the human preparations through secret channels. She was from a neutral species, one that did not take sides in wars. But she had lived among humans for 20 years. She had seen their kindness. She had seen how they treated strangers with respect, how they helped those in need, how they laughed and cried and loved with all their hearts. And she had seen the old scars, the monuments to ancient wars, the promises they made to never repeat the mistakes of their past. She contacted Park Jin through an encrypted channel. "I have information," she said. "Korath fleet positions, supply line weaknesses, things that might help." Park Jin's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but calm. "Why would you help us?" Lai thought for a moment. "Because I have seen what the Korath do to conquered species. And I have seen what humans do when they meet new life. You offer friendship. They offer chains." She paused. "I choose friendship." Park Jin nodded slowly. "Thank you, Ambassador. We will not forget this." The information was sent to Admiral Kong Tae within the hour. He studied it carefully, adding it to his plans, adjusting his strategies. Every piece of knowledge was a weapon. On the 29th day, General Torak positioned his invasion fleet around Novo Sol. His ships were massive and powerful, covered in weapons and armor. His soldiers were ready. His officers were confident. He sent a message to the planet below. "Your time is up. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Resist, and you will be destroyed." He waited for the white flag. He waited for the messages of defeat. He waited for humans to prove they were the cowards he believed them to be. The clock struck midnight. The deadline passed, and then space itself seemed to tear open. Human ships appeared from faster-than-light jumps. Not a few ships. Hundreds of ships. They came from every direction. surrounding the Korath fleet like wolves surrounding prey. General Torak stared at his sensors in shock. This was impossible. The humans had no fleet this size. They had no weapons this powerful. They had no Captain Yoon. Hannah's voice cut through every Korath channel, clear and cold as ice. You wanted to know what humans do when you threaten our children. Now you will learn. Welcome to your nightmare. First missiles launched. The war had begun. General Torak had fought in 40 battles. He had never known fear. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed enemy fleets, and burned cities that refused to surrender. He was a Korath warrior, born to fight, trained to win. In the first 10 minutes of the Battle of Novo Sol, he learned what fear truly meant. The human ships moved like nothing he had ever seen. They did not fight in straight lines or rigid formations like proper warriors. They moved like water, flowing around his ships, striking from every angle, disappearing before his weapons could lock on.
Target their lead ship.
Torak screamed at his officers, "Destroy it." But which ship was the lead? The humans had no obvious flagship. Every ship fought independently, making its own decisions, adapting to every change in the battle. When Torak's ships tried to form defensive positions, the humans simply went around them. When his fighters launched, human fighters were already there. Waiting, the Iron Dawn cut through the center of the Korath formation like a knife. Captain Yoon Hana stood on her bridge, calm and focused, giving orders in a steady voice. All batteries target their shield generators. Cho Wu, are the EMP torpedoes ready? Ready, Captain. Fire. The torpedoes launched. They did not look special. They were small and gray, easy to ignore. The Korath point defense systems shot down most of them, but a few got through. When they hit, the effect was immediate. Korath ships went dark. Their shields failed. Their weapons stopped firing. Their engines died. Ships that had been deadly weapons became floating coffins. The Korath had never seen anything like it. Their technology was supposed to be superior. Their shields were supposed to be unbreakable. But the humans had spent 50 years studying Korath technology, finding its weaknesses, building weapons specifically designed to destroy it. What is happening? Torak demanded. Why are our shields failing? No one could answer him. High above the battle, Lee Mina led her squadron through the chaos. Her fighter was small and fast, painted black to hide among the stars. On her wing flew 11 other pilots, the best humanity had. Go, squadron, form up, she said. Target the enemy carriers. If we kill their fighters on the ground, they cannot launch more. Her squadron dove toward the nearest Korath carrier. Enemy fighters rose to meet them, big and heavily armored. On paper, the Korath fighters were superior in every way. But Lee Mina did not fight on paper. She rolled her ship sideways, slipping between two enemy fighters so close she could see the pilots inside. Her weapons fired in short, precise bursts. One enemy exploded, then another. She did not waste a single shot. Ghost, you have 3 on your tail. Someone shouted. I know. She cut her engines, let her ship drift for half a second, then fired them in reverse. The enemy fighters shot past her, confused. She was behind them now. 3 more kills. Her squadron reached the carrier. Their missiles struck its launch bays, turning them into fire and twisted metal. No more fighters would come from that ship. The carrier down, Lee Mina reported, moving to the next target. On the surface of Novo Sol, 40 million people watched the sky. They could see the flashes of battle, the explosions like distant fireworks. They could not hear anything. Space has no sound, but they could feel it. They could feel their protectors fighting for them. In the capital city, a little girl stood at a window looking up. Her name was Sue. She was 5 years old. She did not understand war. She only knew that her mother was somewhere up there, flying among the stars. Come back, Mama, she whispered. The battle raged for 16 hours. 16 hours of fire and death, of ships exploding and lives ending, of heroes rising and monsters falling. The Korath fought hard. They were warriors, after all. They knew how to die with honor. But they had never faced an enemy like this. They had never faced humans. Humans who fought not for glory but for love. Humans who did not care about honor, only about protecting their families. Humans who would sacrifice everything, pay any price, suffer any pain, to keep their children safe. A human destroyer. Its engines destroyed and its crew wounded. Positioned itself between a Korath battleship and a transport full of fleeing civilians. The destroyer could not win. Everyone knew it. But it fought anyway, firing every weapon it had, buying time for the transport to escape. The destroyer was destroyed. All hands were lost, but the transport escaped. 3,000 civilians lived, because 200 soldiers were willing to die. This was how humans fought. General Torak watched his fleet crumble around him. Half his ships were destroyed or disabled. His officers were panicking. His soldiers were dying. And the humans kept coming, endless waves of fury and fire. "Retreat," he finally ordered. The word tasted like poison in his mouth. Korath did not retreat. Korath never retreated. But staying meant death, and Torak was not ready to die. His remaining ships turned and fled. The humans let them go. They did not chase. They did not hunt down the survivors. They simply protected their world and watched their enemies run. Captain Yunhana looked at the destruction around her. Burned ships floating in space. Debris clouds that had once been weapons of war. She felt no joy. She felt only exhaustion and sadness. "How many did we lose?" she asked quietly. 47 ships, Captain. 8,312 crew members. 8,000 lives. 8,000 families who would receive terrible news. 8,000 empty chairs at dinner tables. "Remember their names?" Yunhana said. "All of them. We will honor them when this is over." News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. Every species heard the story. The weak humans, the fearful humans, the soft humans, with their poems and protests, had crushed the Korath invasion fleet. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives whispered to each other in shock. This was impossible. This could not be real. Humans were supposed to be prey. Elder Myra sat in her ancient chair and watched the reactions around her. She did not seem surprised. "They misunderstood," she said softly, to no one in particular. Everyone misunderstood. Humans do not fear war. They hate it. They hate it because they know exactly what it costs. And when they are forced to fight, that hatred becomes their greatest weapon. On Novo Sol, the little girl named Sue saw the sky grow quiet. The flashes stopped. The explosions ended. And then, slowly, ships began to descend. Human ships, coming home. She did not know if her mother was alive or dead. She could only watch and wait and hope. In the darkness of space, Lee Minna checked her fuel and her ammunition. Both were almost gone. Her ship was damaged. Her body was exhausted. But she was alive. She looked at the photograph on her control panel. Her daughter's smile. "I am coming home," she whispered. "I am coming home." The first battle was over. But the war had just begun. High Lord Voss stood in his throne room and screamed. The walls of the room were covered with trophies from conquered worlds, weapons taken from defeated enemies, flags burned and preserved behind glass, skulls of species that no longer existed. For 300 years, the Korath Empire had never lost a war until now. Voss demanded. His forearms smashed against the table in front of him, breaking it into pieces. "How did they defeat us? They are humans. They are nothing." General Torak stood before him, his head bowed in shame. Half his fleet was gone. Thousands of his soldiers were dead. He had run from battle like a coward, and everyone knew it. My Lord Torak said carefully, "They had weapons we did not expect. Their tactics were unlike anything in our records. They excuses?" Voss roared. "You told me they were weak. You told me they would surrender. You told me this would be easy." Torak said nothing. There was nothing he could say. Voss turned to the window. Outside, the sky of his homeworld was dark red, filled with smoke from 1,000 factories that built weapons and ships. The Korath had built their empire on war. They understood only strength, and now their strength had been challenged. "Assemble the full fleet," Voss said. His voice was cold now, controlled, dangerous. Every ship we have, every soldier we can spare. We will go to Earth itself. We will burn their cities. We will poison their oceans. We will make them watch as we destroy everything they love. And then, when they are begging for death, I will grant it to them. My lord, a full mobilization will take weeks. It will leave our other territories undefended. I do not care. Voss turned to face Torak. The galaxy is watching. If we show weakness now, 100 worlds will rebel. We must destroy humanity completely. Not just defeat them. Erase them. Make other species afraid to ever challenge us again. The order went out. Every Korath warship was called home. Soldiers were pulled from garrison duty on a dozen worlds. Factories worked day and night to build more weapons. Within 2 weeks, 1,000 warships gathered around the Korath homeworld. It was the largest fleet in galactic history. Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Hope. He looked at his fleet and smiled. No species could stand against this force. Certainly not the humans. Set course for Earth, he commanded. We end this now. The humans did not wait for the Korath to come to them. In the Galactic Council chamber, Admiral Kongte appeared as a hologram. His image stood at the human platform, looking around at the representatives of 100 species. We have won a battle, Kongte said. But Voss will not stop. He is gathering his full strength. He intends to destroy Earth, to kill billions of innocent people because we dared to defend ourselves. The council was silent. No one wanted to speak. No one wanted to get involved. We're not asking for your help, Kongte continued. We know how the galaxy works. We know that most of you will sit and watch and do nothing while children die. That is your choice. We cannot force you to have honor. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. But I want you to know what we are going to do. We are not going to wait for Voss to come to us. We are going to go to him. We are taking our fleet to the Korath homeworld. We will face them where they are strongest, and we will win. Not because we love war, because we refuse to let our families live in fear. Park Jin stepped forward. Any species that wishes to help us may do so. Any species that provides intelligence, supplies, or safe harbor for our ships will be remembered as friends. Any species that aids the Korath will be remembered as enemies. He paused. We have long memories. The hologram disappeared. The council sat in shock. Ambassador Lith was the first to stand. My people will provide medical supplies and intelligence. We choose to stand with humanity. Another representative stood. Then another. Then a dozen more? Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough. Enough to show that humanity was not alone. Elder Mira watched all of this with her ancient eyes. When the voting was done, she spoke. I've lived for 1,200 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen species that seemed unbeatable disappear into dust. And I have learned one truth above all others. And she paused. Never threaten someone's children. You will not like what happens next. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Korath space. 300 warships. Not as many as the Korath, but every one of them crewed by people fighting for everything they loved. Admiral Kongte stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Hope of Earth. Captain Yoon Hana stood beside him. Behind them, the command staff worked in focused silence. You know, this could be a one-way trip, Yoon Hana said quietly. Kongte nodded. Yes, the crew knows too. Every single one of them volunteered. I know. Yoon Hana looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, 1,000 enemy ships waited. The odds were terrible. The chances of survival were small. But none of that mattered. They thought we feared war because we mourn our dead, she said. They never understood. We mourn because every life matters to us. That is not weakness. It is why we will fight to the last breath, because every life we protect is worth dying for. Kongte turned to face his fleet through the view screen. Every ship was in position. Every crew was ready. They had trained for this moment. They had hoped it would never come. But now that it was here, they would not hesitate. All ships, Kongte said, his voice broadcast to every vessel. This is Admiral Kung. Today we go to war. Not because we want to. because we have to. Behind us are our families, our homes, our children. The Korath think they can take everything from us. They are wrong. He paused. Some of us will not come home. I will not lie to you about that. But those who fall will be remembered forever. And those who survive will build a future where our children never have to fight this battle again. That is worth any price. That is worth any sacrifice. The fleet was silent, waiting. For Earth, Kongte said. For humanity. For everyone we love. Let us show the galaxy what we are made of. The ships jumped to faster than light speed, disappearing into the darkness between stars. They were heading toward the greatest battle in human history. They were heading toward the reckoning back on Novo's Sol. Limina held her daughter Sue in her arms. Her ship was being repaired. She had a few hours before she had to leave again. A few hours to hold her child and remember what she was fighting for. Will you come back? Sue asked that Limina kissed her daughter's forehead. I will try. I will try with everything I have. Promise. Limina looked into her daughter's eyes. She could not promise. War made liars of everyone who tried. But she could promise something else. I promise I will fight for you. Every moment, every battle, every breath. You are my reason, Sue. You are everyone's reason. And we will never stop fighting for you. It was enough. It had to be enough. The sky above Korath Prime burned with light. 1,000 Korath. Warships faced 300 human ships in the darkness of space. It was the largest battle in the history of the galaxy. Every species watched through long-range sensors and spy satellites. Every leader held their breath. Everyone knew that what happened here would change everything. High Lord Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship and laughed. Look at them. They brought their entire fleet, and it is nothing compared to ours. They have come here to die. General Torak stood beside him, but he did not laugh. He had seen human fighters up close. He had felt their fury. He knew this would not be easy. My lord, perhaps we should silence. Voss raised one of his forearms and pointed at the human fleet. All ships attack. Leave nothing alive. The Korath fleet surged forward like a wave of death. 1,000 ships, bristling with weapons, crewed by warriors who had never known defeat until now. They expected the humans to break and run. They expected fear. Admiral Kongte watched them come. His face was calm, but his heart was beating fast. Everything depended on the next few hours. Everything. Wait, he said quietly. Let them come closer. Wait for it. The Korath fleet raced toward them. 10,000 kilometers. 5,000. 2,000 now, Kongte said. All ships, execute pattern storm. The human fleet did not charge forward to meet the Korath. Instead, they scattered in every direction, like leaves blown by wind. The Korath, expecting a direct fight, suddenly found themselves chasing shadows. Their formation broke apart as ships tried to follow, different targets, and then the human ships began their real attack. They struck from the sides, from below, from above. They appeared from behind asteroid fields and moon shadows where they had hidden smaller ships days before. The Korath found themselves surrounded, their neat formations turned into chaos. Captain Yunhana led the assault on the Korath left flank. The Iron Dawn cut through enemy lines like a sword, its weapons firing without pause. Behind her came 20 more ships, each one finding targets, each one drawing blood. Focus on their communication ships, she ordered. Blind them. Make them deaf. The human ships targeted the Korath command network. One by one, the ships that connected the Korath fleet went dark. Suddenly, Voss could not give orders to half his forces. Ships that had fought together for centuries could no longer coordinate. The great Korath war machine began to stumble. High above the main battle, Limina led Ghost Squadron toward the flagship. The destroyer of hope was enormous, bigger than any ship humans had ever built. It was surrounded by 100 defenders. Getting close seemed impossible. Ghost Squadron, this is Ghost Leader. We have one target. Everything else is a distraction. Stay tight. Stay fast. Stay alive. Her squadron dove into the storm of enemy fire. Fighters exploded around her. Friends she had trained with, laughed with, cried with, disappeared in flashes of light. But she kept going. She had to keep going. Her fighter was hit. Alarm screamed. Fire erupted in her cockpit. But she was close now. So close. She could see the flagship's bridge. Could almost see Voss himself standing at the window. She fired everything she had left. Missiles, cannons, everything. The shots struck the flagship's shield generators, weakening them, cracking them. It was not enough to destroy the ship, but it was enough to give others a chance. Her fighter fell apart around her. She hit the ejection button just in time. Her escape pod shooting away from the explosion that consumed her ship. "Ghost is down," someone reported over the communication channel. Yoon Hannah heard the words and felt her heart break. But there was no time for grief. Not yet. All ships focus fire on the flagship. For Ghost, for everyone. End this. 50 human ships turned their weapons on the destroyer of hope. Its weakened shields flickered and failed. Its armor cracked. Explosions rippled across its hull. On the bridge, General Torak grabbed Voss's arm. "My lord, we must retreat. The ship is lost." Voss stared at the destruction around him with disbelief. This could not be happening. He was High Lord Voss. He was undefeatable. The bridge exploded. When the fire cleared, Voss found himself lying on the floor, wounded, bleeding, surrounded by the bodies of his officers. His throne room of trophies was gone. His fleet was crumbling. Everything he had built was falling apart, and then Cho. Wu's final weapon activated. Every Korath ship received a broadcast. It was not an attack. It was not propaganda. It was simply the truth. The broadcast showed human history. Their wars, their millions of dead. Their cities reduced to ash. But it also showed what came after. The memorials built to honor the fallen. The promises made to never forget. The hands reached out in peace to former enemies. It showed human soldiers helping wounded Korath prisoners. Human doctors treating alien injuries. Human children placing flowers on graves of people they never knew. And it showed Admiral Kong Tae speaking directly to every Korath who could hear. "We do not love war. We carry its weight. Every soldier we lose is a wound that never heals. But we will bear that wound 1,000 times before we let you take our children." He paused. "This war can end now. Not with your destruction, but with your choice. Stop fighting and we will stop. Continue, and we will hunt you to the last ship. The decision is yours." Across the Korath fleet, officers looked at each other. They had lost half their ships. Their High Lord was wounded, his flagship crippled. And the humans were offering something no enemy had ever offered before: mercy. One Korath captain lowered his weapons. Then another. Then a dozen more. The mutiny spread like fire through dry grass. Korath warriors who had never questioned orders suddenly refused to fight for a war they could not win. General Torak dragged the wounded Voss to an escape pod. "My lord, we must surrender. The fleet will not fight anymore."
Oh.
Voss stared at him with hatred. "I will never surrender to prey. Then you will die alone." Torak stepped back. "I am done following a fool." He left. Voss sat in his broken throne room, surrounded by the ruins of his empire, finally understood what the humans had known all along. True strength was not about conquest. It was about knowing when to stop. The Korath fleet surrendered. Voss was taken prisoner. The war was over. But what happened next shocked the galaxy even more. Human ships did not burn the Korath homeworld. They did not take revenge. Instead, they sent medical teams to help wounded Korath soldiers. They shared food and water with civilians caught in the crossfire. They treated their defeated enemies with dignity and respect. Elder Myra watched the reports in disbelief. "They won," she whispered. "They won completely. And they show mercy. In all my years, I have never seen such a thing." In the Galactic Council chamber, Park Jin took his place once again. This time, no one laughed. No one mocked. Every representative watched him with new eyes. Humanity did not want this war, he said. We never wanted any war. But when our children were threatened, we did what we had to do. We will always do what we have to do. Not because we love violence, but because some things are worth any price. He looked around the room. We offer friendship to any species that wants it. We offer protection to any species that needs it. But know this, if you threaten our people, if you come for our families, if you try to take what we love, you will face the same fate as the Korath. We hope you choose friendship. We really do. The council was silent for a long moment. Then Elder Mira stood. I propose that humanity be given a permanent seat on the High Council. They have earned it. They have earned it with blood and sacrifice and mercy. The vote was unanimous. Months later, Limina stood in a hospital room on Novo Sol. Her body was covered in healing scars from the ejection. But she was alive. Against all odds, she was alive. The door opened, and a small figure ran in. Mama. Sue jumped into her mother's arms. Limina held her daughter tight, tears streaming down her face. She had kept her promise. She had come home. I told you, Sue said, her small arms wrapped around her mother's neck. I told you that you would come back. Limina laughed through her tears. You did. You were right. Outside the window, the sky of Novo Sol was blue and clear. Ships flew peacefully overhead. Children played in streets that had almost been destroyed. Life continued. In his office on Earth, Admiral Kungte looked at a list of names. 8,312 from the first battle. 14,871 from the final battle. Every name a person. Every name a family that would never be whole again. He added the list to a memorial that would be built in every human city, on every human world. They would not be forgotten. They would never be forgotten. Captain Yunhana visited his office. She looked tired, but at peace. They said we feared war, she said quietly. They were wrong, Kongte nodded. We did not fear it. We hated it. We hated it because we understood it. And that is why we won. He looked out the window at the stars. May we never have to fight again. But if we do, may we fight with the same courage. For our children, for each other. For everything we love, the galaxy watched humanity with new respect. The species that wrote poems about death, the species that cried for their enemies, the species that offered mercy when they had earned the right to vengeance. They were not prey, they were protectors, and the galaxy would never forget it.